Somewhere along the way, you decided that taking care of yourself was selfish. Nobody told you that in so many words. Nobody handed you a rule that said your health goes last, but you absorbed it anyway from every good mom you watched run herself into the ground. Every she does it all you were praised for while quietly falling apart. So now, when you look about actually addressing what's going on in your body, guilt shows up before curiosity does. Like looking after yourself is a luxury you haven't earned yet. Like there's a line of people who need you more, and you're supposed to be in the back of it permanently. I want to challenge that today, not with a pep talk about you deserve it, with something a lot more solid than that. Quick bit important before I go further. I'm Dr. Carrie Barron, board certified doctor of natural medicine and certified natural health practitioner, not a medical doctor. I do not diagnose, treat, or cure disease. Everything I share here is for educational purposes only and isn't a substitute for working with your own healthcare provider. Okay, let's go. Here's the word I want you to sit with for the rest of this video: stewardship. Not indulgence, not self-care in the way it gets sold to you. Bubble baths, treat yourself culture, something you feel a little guilty about the second it's over. Stewardship. The Bible says it plainly. 1 Corinthians 6:19 through 20. Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. You were bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies. Your body's not yours to neglect. That's not permission to indulge yourself. It's an assignment to take care of what is never fully yours to begin with. You're not the owner here, you're the caretaker. And caretakers who ignore what they're responsible for aren't being humble, they're being negligent. I want to be really clear about something because this is where a lot of women get stuck. You do not need to earn the right to take care of your body. You do not need to prove you served enough people, sacrificed enough hours, held it together long enough before you're allowed to pay attention to what your body's trying to tell you. Stewardship isn't about deserving, it's about responsibility. You steward your finances, whether or not you deserve the money. You steward your home, whether or not you deserve the roof over your head. You do it because it was entrusted to you, and neglecting it doesn't serve anyone, not you, not the people who need you. Your body works the same way. And here's what I've watched happen over and over in the women I work with. The guilt about should I even be focusing on myself disappears completely the moment they understand this isn't about them. It's about honoring what God already gave them the responsibility to steward. Here's the other reason stewardship gets skipped. It rarely feels urgent. Nobody wakes up in a crisis over low-grade exhaustion. Nobody calls 911 because their digestion has been off a little bit for 6 years, or because they're tired and wired every single night, or because they can't remember the last time they felt genuinely well instead of just functional. It doesn't scream for attention, it just quietly accumulates. The way water damage sits behind a wall for years before anyone notices the ceiling sagging. That's exactly why stewardship has to be a decision, not a reaction. Waiting for your body to force the issue means you've already handed the timeline over to a crisis instead of choosing it yourself. Stewardship means you go looking before it's an emergency, not because you're anxious about your health, because you take seriously what you were entrusted with. Here's something I want you to notice, because it's exactly where conventional medicine and stewardship part ways. Most doctors are trained to look for a disease to name. If your lab comes back normal, you get sent home, even if you don't feel normal at all. Nobody asks what's happening emotionally. Nobody asks about the grief you never fully processed or the stress that's been your new normal for so long you forgot it was ever a problem, or the patterns you inherited without ever choosing them. Stewardship means caring for the whole temple, not just the parts that show up clearly on a standard panel. Your emotional health, your environment, your relationships, the toxins you're carrying, the movement your body actually enjoys, the community around you. That's not extra. That's the same body God asked you to honor. You can't steward 3/4 of yourself and call it done. Here's what stewardship looks like in the clients I work with. And I want to walk you through it plainly because I think this is the piece most women have never had explained to them. My job isn't to hand you a list of supplements and send you on your way. My job is three things. First, I help you understand and identify what's actually in the way of your healing, not symptom management, the real root underneath it. Second, I teach you to recognize what your body is communicating because it's been talking to you this whole time. You just haven't had a reason to learn the language. And third, I guide you through the process of actually addressing it so you walk away not just feeling better, but knowing you have control over your own health outcomes, not dependent on me forever, equipped. That third piece matters more than people realize. I don't want you needing me for the rest of your life. I want you to leave this work able to read your own body. So when something shifts, you already know what to do. I want to show you what that actually looks like because I was in a group coaching call with some of my clients this morning and something happened that's a perfect example. One of the women in the program shared that her glucose levels had finally stabilized, something she had been managing with a supplement for a long time. Real progress. But her weight had been bouncing around up and down, no clear pattern. And instead of just handing her an answer, I asked her a question. Had she noticed any connection to what she'd been eating or her movement or her water? She thought about it for a second and she realized she'd been traveling, hadn't been moving her body in the way she normally did, and had basically been sitting still for a few days. That was the whole thing right there. That's stewardship in action. I told her the fact that you're actually recognizing it, the fact that your glucose is improving, and the fact that you're identifying your own patterns instead of waiting for me to hand you an explanation, that's a win. Because here's my big thing, the thing I say to my group almost every week. I want you to be able to listen to your body and pay attention to what it's saying so you can make the changes you need exactly when you need to make them. Not years later, not after a doctor finally has a name for it. Now, while it's still a whisper, not a crisis and a scream. I know that sounds simple when I say it, listen to your body, but most of us were never taught how. We were taught to push through. In athletics, I had this happen over and over again. They call it sucking it up. Play through the pain. Don't stop for the cramp. Finish the drill no matter what your body's telling you. We just never stopped doing it once we left the field. Silence the hunger. Muscle past the exhaustion. Talk over the tight jaw, the racing thoughts, the stomach that's been trying to tell you something long before your mind ever catches up. Somewhere along the way, listening to your body got replaced with managing your body, forcing it into compliance instead of asking it what it needs. Part of what I teach in my Metabolic Forte group program is something as simple as this. Before you eat, before you react, before you push through one more thing, stop. Put one hand on your chest, one hand below your belly button, and breathe in for a count of 4 through your nose and out for a count of 6 through your mouth. And just ask, is there anything my body's trying to tell me right now? Am I actually hungry or am I tired, bored, stressed, avoiding something? Here's a second tool, just as simple. Pause and ask yourself, what am I seeing right now? What am I hearing? What am I smelling? What am I actually feeling in my body, not just in my head? That's it. You're not solving anything in that moment. You are finally paying attention, which is what most of us stopped doing a long time ago because nobody ever told us our bodies were worth that kind of attention in the first place. It's not a checklist. It's not one more thing to do and perform perfectly. It's a posture, a habit of checking in instead of running past yourself all day, every day for years, the way most of us were trained to. I want to add one guardrail here because I've watched women take stewardship and turn it into one more thing to get right or wrong. This is not what that is. Stewardship isn't a scorecard. It's not tracking every meal with dread or feeling like a failure the day you didn't get your walk in or your water down. A steward who makes a mistake isn't a bad steward. They're a human one. Grace is built into this, not bolted on as an afterthought. The goal was never perfection. It was attention, noticing, responding when you can, forgiving yourself when you can't, and getting back to it tomorrow instead of abandoning the whole thing because one day went sideways. That's the difference between stewardship and performance. One is sustainable for a lifetime, the other burns you out in a season. And stewardship doesn't stop at food and supplements. It covers 6 areas I talk about constantly: your emotional and spiritual health, your environment, movement you actually enjoy, your toxin load, keeping your mind engaged, and real community. All of it belongs to God. All of it is on loan to you to take care of, not just the parts that show up on a scale. That's why this work is never just physical for me, and it's never just physical for the women I walk alongside. You cannot steward a body while ignoring the grief you're carrying, or the relationships draining you, or the isolation nobody talks about. It is a whole person thing, not 6 separate projects competing for your leftover energy. I'll say it plainly because it's the thing I keep coming back to with women I work with. Stress you've been carrying quietly for years doesn't stay quiet forever. It shows up in your blood sugar, in your sleep, in your weight, in your skin. The body keeps an ongoing, honest record, even when we've gotten very good at ignoring it. Stewardship means you stop asking your body to carry what your emotions and your spirit were never given room to process. Here's where this gets practical, though, because stewardship without information isn't stewardship, it's guessing. You cannot fully take care of something you've never actually looked at. That's true for your finances, it's true for your home, and it's true for your body. That's exactly what the Root Cause Landscape Core Health Blood Panel is for. This isn't some trendy wellness quiz. It came out of research developed over 30 years of lab results for the National Institutes of Health, gathered from nearly 30,000 people, both high risk and low risk. Out of the dozens of markers researchers tracked, a handful turned out to predict actual health outcomes and longevity better than the categories your doctor typically checks you against. LabCorp, the well-known lab company that owns this research, is who runs the test. It's not hunting for a disease to diagnose. It's showing you, in plain terms, where your body is already compensating right now so you can actually steward it instead of hoping you're doing enough. It tells us what is in the way of your healing so we can get it out of the way. Getting that test isn't indulgence. It isn't extra. It's the very first act of taking your responsibility seriously. And if what I described earlier, learning to identify what's in your way, learning to read what your body's communicating, having someone walk you through it instead of doing it alone, that's exactly what my natural health practice is built around. And I'll be talking more about that soon. But you don't need to wait on that to take your first real step towards stewarding your health. You're not being selfish by paying attention to your own body. You are being faithful with what you were given. Stewardship isn't a phase you graduate out of once you've served enough people. It's not something you earn the right to after the kids are grown or the season gets easier. It is a daily posture, the same one whether you're 25 or 65, whether your calendar is empty or completely full. So take that first step now. Sign up for the Root Cause Landscape. It's $99 and it shows you exactly what you're actually stewarding instead of guessing. The link's below. If you want to understand more about it before you commit, I host free live open houses, small group, real questions, no pressure. That link is below, along with a link to a past session on YouTube if you want to preview first. You were bought with a price. Your body was never yours to neglect, and it was never something you had to earn the right to care for either. God designed you to heal. He designed you to thrive, not just survive one more season of putting yourself last. Let this be the week you start honoring that on purpose. Sign up for the Root Cause Landscape today and begin listening to what your body has been communicating. I'll see you next week.